think we touched on in a previous episode, is that the abandoned cart rate is like 50% on pretty much all e-commerce sites. So just imagine your regular website's probably even higher if someone's going to submit a lead, but they decide not to at the last minute. And the problem is you just don't know who's visiting your site and not leaving any information. You could see visitors, but you can't, you're not going to see any leads. So in this case, if you can extract information from the customer, you have the opportunity to follow up with them.
So it's not even just a matter of create that connection so you've got some contact information in case they don't purchase. You're saying after they purchase it, you've got a way to stay in touch with them for future purchases.
So there is something called a welcome flow, and a welcome flow in email world or SMS world, that is you're welcoming the customer to your business, and that is before they're a customer. So if someone goes to your website, if someone goes to gobrewing.com or drinkeasyman.com, you're going to see an offer pop up for some sort of discount. If you fill out that form, that doesn't mean you purchase from us. You're not technically a customer, you're a prospect at that point. You can leave the website and you're going to get a series of emails from that point on. And those series of emails don't change until you purchase. So they're persisting emails over time. If you're not in e-commerce and you're a service business, maybe you want to give a downloadable PDF. They call it also a lead magnet. Like, why is someone going to give you information? Well, I'm going to give them 10 steps to do X. I'm going to give them some information they cannot otherwise find on the internet. But the first part of this is like capturing those customers that have not bought yet. And if you think about it, you're spending money on ads, you're pushing people to a website or a business. You want to take advantage of that opportunity to collect their data so you can follow up with them so you don't need to send them another ad.
You're saying that there's going to be an incremental dollar value or savings to developing this relationship and creating a connection, getting their information so that later it doesn't cost you as much to market to that person.
Correct. There's a financial value and you're establishing a different kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Meaning if you see an ad amongst the thousands of Facebook ads that you get served or Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is, it gets lost in the noise pretty easy. But now you send me an email and now it triggers a reminder. Oh yeah, that's the business I saw. That's the product or service I was looking at.
Yeah.
So it's key to do that because it establishes a deeper relationship. And like we talked about before, the funnel, now you're a step lower in that funnel.
I think people would understand that just in terms of real world relationships. You meet somebody somewhere, it's not like, hey, give me your email right away. You're trying to create a relationship and then it
100%.
turns into like, hey, let's exchange information and all that.
And the more expensive the product, the deeper the relationship should be. The reality is you have to nurture these relationships over time. So the first thing you want to send is if someone goes to my website and they fill in their information on my pop-up for like a $5 offer, the very first email is just giving them that offer. It's not a Mickey Mouse game of whatever. Like you have to make it super easy. You have to deliver them that offer immediately because at that point their intent is high and you want to capture that right there. The second,
cut the bullshit, get right
cut the
to
bullshit, get to it. Not a bunch of fluff. Here's your offer. That's it. Not about the business or anything. The second email, you want to talk about the value propositions of the business, or of your service. What's your unique selling proposition? Why would someone want to purchase this? What problem are you trying to solve? Dig deeper into that. And through email, you could get really, it could be extremely long. With texting, you got to be really succinct. The third thing you want to think about is objections that the person would have of buying your product or service. So for example, one of the objections someone would think about for non-alcoholic beer would be that it doesn't taste like the real thing. So literally you just put in there, hey, you might want to know, does this taste like the real thing? And then you answer it. So it's not rocket science, but you think about all the objections that people have and you answer them right there. Phrase them in a way of not only are you answering those in like an FAQ maybe, but you can also use testimonials from your other clients that address those, meaning I would find a testimonial that said, I can't believe that this is non-alcoholic beer, which we get plenty of them. Well, that actually means more coming from a customer than the business saying that this doesn't taste like non-alcoholic beer. This tastes like regular beer, right? So that's like a power tip there. And then from that point on, there's a lot you can do, but you want to keep that nurturing going on.
We want to be really tactical here too. So what's the cadence for that welcome email series that you're talking about? Say I'm on desktop, get the pop-up. Go ahead, I put in my information right away. Am I getting that email right away? Is it delayed? Like when?
Immediately.
Immediately.
That's and this is a great question to tap into. You're immediately getting it. Then the second email in that series would be a little bit about the value proposition, like I was saying, and that's going to come a couple hours later. You don't even want to wait a day on that because the first email didn't have a lot of meat in it. The first email just gave the offer. The second email in the series should be a couple hours later. And then the third email addressing the objections, that could wait a day. I wouldn't wait like 3 days. Like, don't overthink this. Like, it's better to send things sooner than later because you fade out of people's mind quickly because, again, they're in this sea of craziness of like all these businesses trying to vie for their attention.
Yeah.
And you want to grab it as soon as possible.
I know you love testing things. So is this like, have you tested this frequency or are you just doing it kind of on a best practices? Like,
we test all kinds of stuff. So have I tested like between 2 hours and 3 hours? Yes, I actually have. And I could tell you that even though you think you're bothering the customer more, and in some ways you are, it is better to send it earlier because you want to be top of mind. Then the next one you send would be like 24 hours later, and that's going to address objections. Like I talked about, so testimonials, like how did it help other people? And then I would say the fourth, and you could just keep going and going and going. I'll say 2 more. The fourth should be about you, the business, the story, the problem, and make it about the customer. The customer is the hero. Like the business isn't the hero. The customer is the hero. And then the last one I would say, and again, you could repeat some of these too, would be like, hey, here's your last chance to get this offer. Like this is expiring right now.
Is this the part in the process where you're also kind of working towards creating community and inviting that customer into, or you're saving that for down the road?
That's like post-purchase, right? Right now you're trying to convince the customer that your product or service is going to help them with either their need or their desire, right? Those 2 things. Once they're a customer, that's when a whole nother events start happening in terms of follow-up. Now you already have their information. Now think about the customer profile. You just filled it out more. You're getting to know the customer and where they're coming from a geographical standpoint, which is important.
Yeah. So let's switch to that because Go does, I think, a really nice job in terms of like creating some surveys and like, why are you buying from us so that you're really understanding? Like, when does that kind of happen? Or is it separate from this flow? Like, let's go from beyond, I made the purchase. Now, how are you ultimately going to reduce your way to stay in touch with that person later cost-wise because you've done this up front?
I'm glad you asked this because there is a step you can take in between those 2 things. And you see it occasionally. That step is called a post-purchase survey question. And what happens when you purchase on a website, right on the checkout page, you have the opportunity to ask a customer a question. A lot of the questions you probably see, and sure, everyone listen to this, has observed this. How did you hear about Go Brewing? How did you hear about said business? And then you'll have a list of structured elements to choose from. What you don't want to ever do is leave it open-ended.
Right.
You want structured data. Why? Because then it matches to a database of information. So what Go did, instead of asking how'd you hear about us, because when we first started, we wanted to really find product market fit. So we would ask questions like, when you're shopping, outside of the style of beer that you're looking for, what are the attributes that you look for to make a purchase decision? And that actually helped us design our packaging because the number one thing they said is flavor. We want to know the characteristics of the taste I can expect. So if you look at our packaging, you'll see a can on it. And the can actually is angled in a way where your eye goes toward the actual attributes. So for example, our Oktoberfest, it'll be angled in such a way that it's going to draw your eye to made with German malt and hops. Or if it's like made with real fruit, or it's just the most important attribute you should draw their eyes towards. So like, that's an example that's a little nuanced, but the point is like we got that from customer data. And then we would ask questions that we would use in retail pitches. And the cool thing about this is that we would get an insane number of responses as a percentage of overall purchases, meaning in some months we would get 1,000 responses to some of these questions. And one of the questions that we had were, what is your relationship to alcohol? Because we wanted to truly understand, where did these customers fit on the spectrum of drinking? Like, do they drink still? Do they drink in moderation? Are they completely sober? And we found some incredible information. That information, I think you kind of teed it up with your question, like how does that affect the email flow? Now I could use that data to segment the email marketing that I'm going to be sending out. So for example, if someone says that they're sober, if I'm doing my job, I'm not sending them emails about how to cut back on drinking. They're actually going to be offended by that in a way. So you can segment those customers and you could do a lot of really cool things to talk to them in a different way. Now, all this requires a lot more work. So I recommend like that is definitely a strategy that everyone should do, but it's get the bases set up first with these flows.
Yeah.
And then start to add that really personalized approach.
I want to summarize that for a quick second because there's so much good stuff there. So it's creating this foundational structure, but also a process internally so that you're getting the information you need to stay connected with that person. Then it is not asking them just questions about the business, but about them, right? Which is going to help inform kind of your relationship with them going forward. But then start with enough that you can do with this, and then you can expand kind of how you're using that information going forward for future communication.
So some of the other cool things we ask is, we have this quiz that is for the person that's really like overwhelmed with how many options we have to lead them down a path of what kind of beer would be right for you. Well, in that quiz, you take that opportunity to ask personalized questions too. And one of those questions we ask, are you sober? If the answer is yes, we ask them what dates they became sober, because people know that. And then we store that, and then we actually will send them on their anniversary a really large offer.
Yeah.
And it's all automated because we truly care about that, and we know that's a big moment for them. So we want to celebrate it with them.
That's so smart. So I would imagine for the entrepreneur that doesn't have any experience with this type of space, there's a ton of different platforms that are available out there to him or her in terms of how to do this. Do you have one that you love more than another?
Yeah. So in e-com, I think Klaviyo is the one I would recommend and the one I use. There's a few of them, but that is like, say, the industry standard. That system does a really good job in all of these segments. So any of this data you collect, it adds this to the customer record. So everything I'm talking about up to this point is 100% automated. Once you set it up, it's good. And you could tweak it over time, but it is so important to have that set up before you launch anything, because you want to maximize that opportunity to develop that relationship with the customer.
Convince me that this is really worth it from a dollar and cent standpoint.
It'd be hard for someone to convince me that it's not, even if you took the money out of it completely. Even if you said, I have not got one sale from it, it doesn't cost you anything more, and you're establishing a deeper relationship with your customer. But the reality is, and speaking for e-com, 30% plus of your revenue should come from email marketing, should come from an audience that you own. 50+% of our DTC channel revenue comes from repeat purchases. And that all comes from email, that all comes from subscription, that all comes from SMS, and all these programs that we've developed. If you don't have that when you're starting, how are you going to get that returning customer? How are you going to follow up with them?
Right.
How are you going to be able to reach out to them in the first place? So the first thing that we talked about is not the returning customer, it's the first customer, it's the acquisition. So that's about minimizing your acquisition cost. Because if you don't do that, again, you're going to spend more money trying to attract them back to your website, and it's going to be a cycle of craziness.
Yeah.
If you don't have your post-purchase stuff set up, then you're kind of in the same boat. Now you're going to have to go reacquire that customer because they're not going to remember to purchase from you. Because think about it, like how many businesses and services that you purchase from.
Yeah.
Just to quickly touch on that, your first email should be a thank you email. So when someone purchases, the second one should be, here's what to expect when the product arrives or when the service appointment comes. The third one is, here's FAQs. So it's like, again, nurturing. The fourth one can be an upsell offer. Hey, while this is on its way, we also have this opportunity, and believe it or not, customers purchase if it's a good deal.
That sounds a lot like come from the vantage point of good customer service and not I'm going to sell to you again.
100%.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple other ones where you can look at repeat purchases and say, okay, this person has bought from me 2 or 3 times. I'm going to send them an offer to be a member, to subscribe. And then there's probably one of the most valuable ones I did. If someone leaves a review on our website, I created a flow to say if it's 5 stars or more, just simply ask them for a favor. Can you post this on Google for me? And we have almost 400 5-star Google reviews because of that. It's very easy to do. And then I think personally, every one of those people, because they'll respond and say, hey, I just left this. Thank you very much. Your product helped me. And I'll respond to them because a customer is going to go out of their way to do that. You got to really show your appreciation. So that also establishes a closer relationship with the customer. And you do that over time. And now we're a couple years into it. And we have a lot of good relationships, and that's why customers feel like they know us a little more. We're not just this surface level company that doesn't stand for anything.
It's good stuff, man.
One other point I want to make, if you are not in e-com, there's a lot of other platforms that do this kind of stuff. MailChimp would be one I would look at. don't think this doesn't apply to you if you're a service business, and don't think it doesn't apply to you if you're selling something but you're not selling online. This applies to every business.
Yeah.
The flows may differ a little bit, but I would say generally think about what I'm saying and put yourself in the consumer's shoes and see how it applies to your customer.